Morning, everyone. Hope you are all well. Good. Hope you had a lovely summer's day yesterday. So I apologize, but the list has vanished. Obviously, a half term, it's taken its toll, but we are learning in memory of Leah Bas Feivel, Shmuel Yitzchok Leah Bas Feivel, Ben Sion Ben Yitzchok, and all of those that have Yortzeit and are saying Kaddish today. So firstly, I want to share with you a WhatsApp message that I received, and tell me what you think. Good morning to all those that are joining us. Bear with me 1 second and I'll get it. So this is from Hussein Abu Bakr, okay? Clearly not Jewish. He wrote, Israel joins the list of Middle Eastern countries with a multi-ethnic government coalition made of Arabs and Jews. The list also includes exactly 0 other countries, which obviously, he says, makes Israel an apartheid state. I think it's quite insightful, you know, the fact that we have a new government in Israel, and that we have Arabs which have signed the agreement and they're part of the Israeli government now. It speaks volumes about the country, and all those accusations about ethnic cleansing and all the other things, you know, are completely unfounded. But I want to speak to you now, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. You know, does that feel? Are you excited, full of optimism, with the prospect of this new government and Arabs that are a part of the government? Are you full of optimism for the future, or do you think it's going to be more of the same? So you can put your comments in the chat box. We carry on. So there is a description we're still speaking about the spies, not the Israeli, well, the original Mossad, and that is, of course, those that went into the Promised Land. And we find that when they went in, we know they brought back a bad report. But the description is telling of the way that they described themselves, or the way that they perceived themselves in the eyes of the inhabitants of the land. So the Torah says that we were like grasshoppers in their eyes. Remember, they were considered giants in the country. So that we were considered like grasshoppers in their eyes, and so we were in our eyes, right? So that's the first description, and of course the description is telling that they clearly, one thing in saying that, you know, that you were like grasshoppers in relation to somebody else, but how do you know the way that they saw you? Sorry, what do you want? Okay, you can say hello, and then I've got to carry on. This is why I'm a bit distracted today. Say hello. Okay, I'm going to be with you in a minute. Okay, but Puppy's got to finish this first. Half term, and it's my half hour to look after the little one, so that's why I'm a bit distracted. So the first question we want to deal with is the description that we were like grasshoppers in their eyes, and so we were in our eyes. The second description seems to contradict that, and Rashi says Rashi says further on that we were like ants. Well, were the spies like grasshoppers or ants? So I saw a fascinating insight as to the distinction between ants and grasshoppers. Did you know that ants are, you know, I'm sure you know, they spend most of their lives just gathering food and materials to make their home. In fact, they found, I think it was 400 core, the Gemara, the Talmud discusses it, about the nature of ants, in that they work ferociously hard to gather as much food as they possibly can. And the other description is that of grasshoppers. Now, grasshoppers, right, they don't work particularly hard, and they only gather enough food for one day. Now, what's telling about the ants is, although they gather all this food, which is enough, which is 400 core, or hundreds of kernels of food, in fact, they only need 1.5 kernels That's all they need for their lives. So in other words, they are amassing great wealth in terms of the food, in terms of their worldly endeavors. And that is despite the fact that they know that they are only going to live 6 months. And why do they do that? Because they have this optimism that perhaps we will live longer than expected, and therefore we want to have this great fortune. Sounds a familiar story. We've heard it from other people before. I've heard it from people even on their deathbeds, that they refuse to part with anything, despite the fact that they're never going to be able to spend everything that they have, just in case they need it one day, or because they may live longer than expected, even though all the indications are the other way. Now, the grasshoppers are the exact opposite. They worry that they have enough for today. More than that, they don't gather and they don't worry about. So these two descriptions are telling, because who gave the description when the inhabitants of the land described the Jewish people or the spies as grasshoppers? Who were they referring to? And when they described as ants, who were they referring to? So I came across a fascinating explanation that the description and the labeling of ants and grasshoppers is not a contradiction. They were referring to different spies. Joshua and Caleb, right, that brought back a good report and had a long-term vision, right? They were described in terms of being like grasshoppers. Why? Because they only worried about the here and now. They didn't have to worry about how we're going to survive tomorrow. How are we going to make sure that we survive into the next 20, 30, 40 years? They knew that they were in God's hands, and therefore they put their trust and faith in God. Whereas those that were saying that they were like ants, they were described as ants, that refers, of course, to the other spies. Why? Because they were, of course, concerned about the long term. And they said to themselves, how are we going to manage? How are we going to do anything? Joshua and Caleb were just worried about the here and now. Can we manage? Is God said he's going to look after us? The answer is yes. So I think that one of the ideas that comes through in the passage of the spies is the idea about, firstly, how we see ourselves. Do we have healthy self-esteem or low self-esteem? Right? The description of the spies, one of the problems was they lacked self-confidence. They lacked self-esteem. They lacked self-belief. We mentioned before that the Kotzker Rebbe said that part of belief, that if one doesn't believe, sorry, what does he say? He says, part of belief in God is believing in oneself. And therefore, if you don't believe in yourself, you're actually denying belief in God. And that is because a part of God is inside each and every one of us, the spirit that's inside us. And that is so important, because then we are able to recognize if God made me exactly the way he determined, it means that I am perfect in a sense. I'm the way he wanted, with all the potential and capabilities, with all the options under the sun. I don't need anything less, and I don't need anything more. And therefore that is telling, because then we have belief, we have confidence in what we are doing at any second of the day. Conversely, if we believe that it's all about me and it's in my hands, and if I am able to do so on my own, then I will succeed, and if not, I won't. Then it can lead to a person having low self-esteem, comparing oneself with other people, the strengths that they have, the capabilities that they have, and therefore I may feel that I'm not very capable, I'm not very worthy, not seeing the godliness inside ourselves, making comparisons. And Rabbi Dr. Twersky, a great psychiatrist who passed away, he wrote over 20 books, and he said once, in fact, he only wrote one book, and that one book, it was and is all about self-esteem. Healthy self-esteem is so important. I'm just reading the comments that are coming in from David. There are 8 different parties making up the proposed Israeli government coalition with historically opposing views. Whether it proves to be effective, only time will tell. I think you're right, David, but we've tried the other model. The other model is where we try to we try to stifle debate. We try to smother any type of conversation and difference, and we try to force people into one particular mode. Israel, as the 12 tribes demonstrated, are particularly diverse. All of them had different perspectives. And what they should have done in this moment in time when they were spying out the land is they should have had a conversation with Joshua and Caleb. They should have kept an open mind, and then they would have come round to seeing the other side of the coin, seeing the benefits, recognizing that God has delivered them so far and will continue to deliver them. But rather than that, there was tunnel vision, and that led them to being influenced adversely by their biases. So please God, as David has said, our hope and our prayer as the new government is ushered in Israel is that they will embrace the similarities but respect the differences. And in that way, please God, we look forward to Israel being a place where there will be peace for Jews and for Arabs and prosperity for all. We'll conclude with the memorial prayer. Adonai Lamim Zachoes Nishmois. Neabat Bible. Benzio Menitcha, Shalchul in Amam Bagan, Aiden Taimanucha, Som Lachim Balarachamim, Yastirim, Saysakana Pablo Lamim, Vayes Wachla, Viets Robas, Hamish Samad, Nachla Sam, Yanuku Bishnomish Kavam and Amar, Amen. Mi Sheber Hasin Rabim Yaakov, Moshe Aaron, David Shlama, Ivach, Rapesa Chaylim, Babo Shanim Ismalim, Babo Ram, Chazakash Baruch, Yimale Rachim Alehem, Lachmor Fosam, Vishlach Lem Pushlim, and Shemaim Lacholem, and Besof Shachiso. Amen. Today we have a special guest who will be able to say good morning to you all. Okay, you're going to say good morning as troublemaker who disturbs my share, disturbs everyone's wave, and say good morning to everyone. They can see you. Go on, give a wave. Look like that. That's all you've got to do. Give a wave. Okay. Say goodbye. You can have a nice lolly, and then you're going to hopefully allow me to do some work. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Look after yourselves. Keep well. We'll see you tonight, 8:30 for our program, and then tomorrow morning is 9 a.m. Keep safe, keep well, look after yourselves. Remember the Hackenbrock's helpful half hour this Monday is all about cars with a car expert, and I'm sure that will be very, very insightful, bearing in mind the changes in the industry.